Oh, what's that? It's E3 time? I really feel like they should just change the name to I'm gonna either rage or be totally cool with everything. There's never an in-between, it seems. But, thankfully, E3 wasn't the issue this year. Nope, I had a great time with E3 and the awesome games shown off during the conference. It wasn't quite as hype as the last few years have been, but there was still a lot of enjoyable stuff. Destiny, on the other hand... Oh, Luke Smith, you marmy-bearded man. Wait, why do I feel like I'm talking about myself all of a sudden? Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and let's just get into the news. First off, I just wanted to touch base on what I'm excited for, and I mean poke at it and move on. First, Anthem looks cool, but I doubt it'll be anything like that in the finished product. I do hope it has lore though. Second, Sony's showings was pretty intense with God of Is It War and Days of the Last of Us. Oh, they also showed off Monster Hunter. Oh my God, it's about time, you jerks! And Ubisoft showed off Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is it's no longer a joke, and someone's buying pizza for a lot of people. But it's way too late for me to care. Of course, what I did care about was the stuff that Bungie was going to tell us, and it wasn't a lot, but yet it was. More importantly, however, there were a few articles that sprung up over the last week that we really need to talk about. First, Bungie showed off their first real trailer of Gaul, aka Zarkon from the new Voltron, aka Optimus Friggin' Prime. I want to hug him, but I want to punch him till he cries. He's also taking orders from Frank Langella, the guy that voiced Skeletor in Masters of the Universe. Why does this sound like an awesome 80s cartoon? Why didn't someone think of this before? Anyway, trailer is awesome. Recommend you give it a listen because, whoa, the visuals are great, the speech Gaul gives really makes me want to punch him. We find out in a Game Informer article about this connection with Gaul and a guy called the Consul, just to shift gears a little bit. Basically, the Consul gives Gaul a lot of ideas as he goes along. Gaul basically overthrew the Emperor of the Cabal in a nasty coup, so now Gaul's in charge. We'll probably find out more about this Consul guy if he is in fact a Cabal member or what else is going on, but I am definitely wondering if the previous Emperor might be some kind of ally for us in the game at some point. That'd be pretty cool. This other faction of Cabal basically fighting against Gaul and along with us to take back his army and be like, hey humanity, sorry about that, and just leave. Never mind, that sounds stupid. Minus the other faction of Cabal fighting with us. But the ending screen of the trailer is the important thing, getting back to that. Open beta is a little weird, but here's the rundown. PS4 gets it ahead of everyone else on July 18th, Xbox Early Access gets it July 19th, and everyone else gets it the 21st. In total, it's 5 days long, so those that didn't get to pre-order it still get about 2 days to mess around. That's a fair amount of time to sit and play the game. I'm rather excited for this, but no, it's going to be hard to go back to Destiny 1. Link is down in the description though if you want to see the full trailer with full audio. The other big piece in the trailer is a showcase of a few new exotics. Well, okay, we already saw most of them. Dubious Volley is shown off a little bit more, a new pulse rifle called Cold Heart, which is an Avalon pulse rifle, and the minigun we've seen is called Sweet Business, which is technically an auto rifle. I know, I'm a little disappointed too. There's also a sword and a couple other weapons showcased in the trailer for all of a half second each, but they're there. Along with, of course, some of the stuff for the PlayStation exclusive gear like armor sets and the exotic sniper rifle, which apparently can switch back and forth between void, arc, and solar damage. Otherwise, Bungie at E3 was a little light, as I kind of expected them to be, especially with them focusing on Twitch streams. We've heard ways the Arcstrider will handle through articles and from members down on the show floor at E3. There's some PC gameplay floating around there, which shows off the sweet visuals and uncapped frames per second. But otherwise, it was a little meh. The 30-minute show with the Big Show of WWE fame was pretty fun to watch, if I'm honest, and the PS4 gameplay event that was held with Deej on hand was just a rehash of most of what we already knew. And speaking of rehash, that basically comes back to the bulk of the new 10-page Game Informer article that was just released. There isn't a ton of new stuff to find here, minus hearing some more phrases and words from Mark Noseworthy and Luke Smith, smarmy-bearded man. Where does that keep coming from? A lot of the article focuses on philosophy and just what's going through the heads of Bungie as they develop D2. One thing that, of course, caught my attention, which is the editor of the article doing his job, is the first line of the article by Luke Smith. Anytime we put a number on the box, we will start fresh. Every time we launch an integer, it will always be this way. We're going to change things fundamentally each time. All this means is don't get attached to the stuff you use in Destiny 2 for Destiny 3. Obviously, they may listen to feedback later on about stuff we'd want to see come over from the last game, or we can hope they would, but just don't expect progress to carry over, ever, minus expansions to big number games. The fundamental idea of Destiny is hope in the darkness. No, wait, I can't use that word anymore. Destiny 2 is a game about light and what happens when it's taken from you, and the lengths that Guardians will go to get it back. We're exploring the relationship between the player and the ghost in terms of light, and Ghaul's coveting of the light. As such, we wanted to carve off other things that we didn't think were important to the release, such as words like the darkness. We've never really said what the darkness means. Ultimately, we do owe our players a story there, what is the darkness, but that's not this game. We wanted to remove as much of the extra terminology as possible and focus on telling the Destiny 2 story. In so doing, allow Destiny 2 to usher in the rest of the saga. It's going to start some threads that we intend to carry through. This comes straight from Luke Smith, whom, just to reiterate, is the director of Destiny 2, and the quote is from a more recent Game Informer article, and I have to say I'm a bit mixed about this. Mark Noseworthy, head of world design, tries to clear this up a bit more in the same article, saying, "The Cabal have nothing to do with the darkness. They are not the darkness or its representatives. The Hive are the closest because they worship the darkness, but you can worship a thing that you are not." Now, this is fine, I suppose. It's been a staple of Destiny up until now for us to try and solve that mystery, but I guess I can see where we're going, since we're cutting down the importance of the other enemy races? That seems backwards, now that I say it. But what really strikes me as odd is from a PC Gamer article, and here's where things legit get scary. Tim Clark, a PC Gamer, asked Luke Smith a surprisingly good amount of questions related to the story of Destiny 1, and I'm really thrilled to see this. That is, until I read some of the answers. Tim says, Ghaul seems like a cool new big bad to introduce in the same way Oryx rocked up for the Taken King and provided the main antagonist. But are we going to learn any more about the core story introduced in Destiny 1? Who the speaker is and where he comes from, what the darkness is? Are we going to hear from the Exo-Stranger? Are those kind of questions going to be answered in Destiny 2? Luke replies with, not specifically all those questions. I think some of those questions we've taken off the shelf to look at, and some of those questions we're leaving on the shelf and may never answer. Personally, I think of Destiny 1 as sort of an issue 0 in a comic book series. It's about introducing the universe and some characters in it and some statements, but I think we want to, and a bunch of those statements were questions. I don't know that we'll answer all those statements from the first game, and aren't going to attempt to in Destiny 2 either. We're telling a story here with some momentum, and I think it's going to show direction and progress for where the arc of Destiny is going to go, and that arc is, for us, really beginning with Game 2. The article continues, and Tim asks the question, is there a world in which we never find out who the Exo-Stranger was talking to on the phone? Luke replies with, yeah, I mean, there's a world where you never find out anything else about the Exo-Stranger, and there's a world where the Exo-Stranger is the star of Tim, Destiny 3? Luke laughs. I don't know how you can for statements like these. Yeah, there's a world where the Exo-Stranger has a cartoon or a comic book series or whatever. With Destiny, we have so many cool opportunities to tell stories in and out of the game, and we have a bunch of characters who are interesting, but the Exo-Stranger is one that almost makes me chuckle a bit, because I feel that's one character where we actually wrapped up the arc. She gave you a sweet gun and then dissolved, presumably off to do something else. So I feel like of all of our characters we've introduced and exited, we actually exited her effectively. But she always comes up. She always comes up, so there's obviously something to that character that piques people's curiosity. And perhaps this is the scariest portion, but Tim asks, so you're not going to tell me whether the Awoken Queen is dead either, I guess. Luke replies with, no, I'm not going to talk to you at all about any of those characters. I know that there is a lot of passion from our fans about the mysteries of the Awoken and the Reef, and while Destiny 2 is not going to specifically stare into those mysteries, we see it in the way people that cosplay the characters and love them. So yeah, there are more stories to be told there. Sorry for all the reading from the article, but in case you didn't want to read the article, this is the whole bit that I'm worried about. Now, I didn't expect the Reef to be a major focus or point of Destiny 2 at all, but I was at least hoping to hear more about the Reef or Severix, Petra, what happened to the Queen, the Tachian Witches. There's a lot obviously left unanswered on this topic, especially for something like a forming alliance between the Reef and the Tower before Ghaul's assault, especially considering the Cabal would almost have to pass through Reef space, or presumably to get through to the Tower. They would have been able to at least warn us in some way about this, seeing what was coming. The precedent is being set in stone now. A lot of the mysteries and ideas you were hoping to see answered from the Grimoire, or otherwise very well just may never be touched on again. This includes possibly never hearing about the Exo-Stranger again, or showcasing her, at least within the game, along with what may actually be happening with the Taken, even though we have that, of course, official strike that's coming up, and who is in charge of actually leading them, etc. This really feels like a deep hit to the lore, just from what has been said. Obviously not what has been seen. I was going to type this up last night, but I decided I'd let it settle and sleep on it. I'm mildly glad that I did, because I definitely had a few choice words for the marmy-bearded man at the time, but I understand where they're coming from, with wanting to focus more on the story within the game and showcase how everything will play out with a set amount of characters and players in the game. Destiny was getting chock full of them, which kept it interesting and, to me, even if just in writing, alive. And you know, it's a real shame they didn't come up with a place they could put stories that had no real sense of being within the game as it was. That would have been a good idea. Oh wait. Oh yeah, we did have that. It was called the Grimoire. I'll just get this off my chest now. After reading these comments by Noseworthy and Smith, I can't help but feel that the exclusion of the Grimoire, at least with not seeing its replacement as of now, if there even is one, seems lazy and counterintuitive to deep lore fanatics. It is upsetting no matter how I try to put a positive spin on it. Could we see books on Destiny 2's story? Maybe. Could we see graphic novels? Maybe. Could we see webcomics like that of Overwatch? Maybe. But what we're getting right now from the development team is a big fat maybe, which means they're in talks or don't know, and either way, it comes back as they don't know. Anyway, that's where I'll leave it, gang. Leave your thoughts down below. You might interpret this in many different ways than I, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. In fact, please help me come up with something positive from this move on the story on Destiny 2, aside from it's more focused on a race we know little to nothing about. If you're not sure what to say, though, you can leave the phrase marmy-bearded man in the comments below, because I don't know why it popped into my head while writing things, but it did. It's not an insult, it's just Luke. I have so many questions! As always, gang, hit the like or dislike button, subscribe if you'd like to see more lore, news, weapons, updates, whatever else regarding this wonderful game that most of us love, and some of us just want to punch in the face till it cries. But as always, I appreciate you just being here. I can only ever be Beard Grizzly, and I'll see you next Spacetime Guardians. Take care, and smile. I'll force one for myself. Later.